Your combat level in Hypixel Skyblock is huge when it comes to any combat related content. From dungeons to Slayer, your experience will be way smoother and fun with a higher combat level due to its percent damage increase per level up. In today's video, we'll be going over the top combat XP methods for each stage of the game, and we'll be providing what gear you should be using and what XP you'll actually be earning from this. Now sadly, we can't give you the perfect value for how much XP you'll be earning per hour, because everybody has a different amount of wisdom and champion levels. The best we can do is provide the XP per hour without any veteran at all to clear up any type of confusion. For each mob, we'll supply the base amount of XP per hour, and all you need to do is multiply the number by your combat XP multiplier seen in the wisdom tab, as well by 1.x for each champion level on the weapon you're using. X is the champion level, so if you champion 7, X is 7. Now for example, if we say the mob gives 100k XP per hour and your wisdom is 100 and your champion level is 10, you would multiply by 2 for the 100 wisdom, because that's 100%, and then increase that number by 10%, so your rates would come out to 220k per hour.
Before going into this guide, I'd really like to take your time to ask you guys to subscribe. A lot of time was put into this video, and a subscription is not only free, but you could change your mind later. Eventually, our goal is to hit YouTube rank, and every subscription goes a long way. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's go into the guide. Out of all the mobs in this video, Ice Walkers are definitely the worst for combat XP an hour, but what separates them is the amount of gear you actually need to kill them. The gear required to kill Ice Walkers are extremely cheap. All you need is any type of pickaxe, probably like a diamond or a cheap mithril one, and then any type of armor, probably like glaciite just for the HP boost. After a quick test, we were able to figure out that Ice Walkers average around 2.9 thousand kills an hour, along with 116,000 combat XP an hour. Now as mentioned before, these rates are without any combat wisdom. The reason for this is realistically, if you're killing Ice Walkers or Endermen or whatever else, you're not going to have veteran this early into the game. Now Ice Walkers do make an okay amount of money considering glaciite jewels and their prices, but other than that, these are pretty useless. Endermen have always been a decent source of combat XP for newer players, especially 9000 HP Endermen. The gear for these are not too heavy either. All you realistically need is an Ender Armor and like an AOTE to teleport quicker around to each Enderman. After around an hour of testing, we were able to figure out that you're able to get 3,860 kills an hour, which with the no combat wisdom equals to around 170,000 combat XP an hour. Now though you don't make as much money killing Endermen, the amount of combat XP you get an hour is definitely noticeable. And if you're trying to get somewhere like the Crimson Isles, Enderman is definitely the best way to go.
Alright, now we're moving on to mid-game. We're going to be talking about Enderman Slayer and T5 Rev Slayer. These are good at this stage of the game because the gear requirements aren't very high, there's a potential to make money, and they make a pretty decent amount of XP. You also might not have these Slayers at level 9 yet, so getting these done will get you a little bit of extra Skyblock XP on top of the combat levels you're already getting.
Now, Enderman Slayer isn't too bad to get into. Realistically, all you probably want is like a Final Destination set with the Adam Slick Katana. Now, though Slayer isn't just consistently killing one mob, the amount of XP to actually spawn the boss and the XP you get from the kill is pretty nice. To spawn the boss, you need 22,000 combat XP, and from the actual kill, you get 500. What makes Slayer really good are the mini-bosses that spawn when killing the Enderman. Now, the 25 mil HP mini-bosses aren't anything special, but what we care about more is the red mini-bosses. Due to a change that happened around a few months ago, red mini bosses are only allowed to give you half of the Slayer requirement to spawn. What makes this great is that you get more combat XP while less is being allocated to your quest, giving you more time to actually grind the combat XP. Now we can't tell you the exact amount of combat XP you get an hour, as everyone bosses are different, and then RNG is also a factor in this. Best advice we could give you is doing your own test on this by doing an Enderman Slayer, seeing how much XP you get from spawning and killing it, and then doing the math based on your boss time. Now the best part about this compared to everything else in the video is this is really fun to do, and it gives good money as well. Now ever since the release of Slayer, Revenant Slayer has always been looked at as a really good combat XP method. The gear you need to actually kill a tier 5 Revenant isn't as bad as people think. All you need is like a Reaper or a Necron set along with a high damage weapon, preferably something like a giant sword or AOTS. To spawn a tier 5 Revenant, it's only 6,000 combat XP, and when you kill it, you're rewarded with 1.5 thousand. The biggest difference between Rev and Enderman Slayer is the amount of combat XP you need to spawn. Comparative to Enderman Slayer, Rev Slayer is around a fourth of what you need to actually spawn. The thing that makes up for this is how fast you're actually able to kill the mini bosses and the boss itself. The only downside to the Slayer is it doesn't make that much money, and in most cases you'll probably lose money. Now again, as we said for Enderman Slayer, we can't actually give you the amount of XP you'll get an hour, but it's pretty easy to calculate using the same formula you used for Enderman Slayer.
Alright, so after that, finally, we're going to be talking about the late/endgame methods. These are the methods you're going to want to use to get those last few levels so you can finish up the skill and get level 60. And while the gear requirements might be a little bit high, the XP rates you're going to be getting are going to be well worth the cost.
Out of everything on this list, Ghost is definitely the most well known. The gear you need to kill Ghost isn't actually too bad. You need a weapon, preferably a Daedalus Axe or something like a Giant Sword or Dark Claymore will work too. Along with that, you need some type of Crimson Armor. Doesn't matter what type of Crimson Armor you have as long as you hit for 500k a hit. The reason we say 500k is that the Crimson Swipe ability will do double your damage. So if you're doing 500k, you'll actually do 1,000,000 damage, enough to one-tap the Ghost. With our testing, we were able to get around 5.8 thousand kills an hour. Now, you might get less or more depending on lobby lag or just people interrupting you. With this in mind, the XP rates we were able to get was 580,000 combat XP an hour without any veteran or champion. And then assuming you have everything maxed veteran-wise and have a champion 10 weapon, you should just peak over 2 million combat XP an hour. The best part about Ghost is the insane amount of money you'll actually make. The reason I say this is because the Sorrel sells for a ton, as well as the pet XP you're able to salvage from that combat XP. In no way is Ghost anywhere near beginner friendly, but if you're able to do it, I would definitely recommend it, as the bestiary to max it is also insane. Something you might know is how good floor 6 combat runs are actually for combat XP. Defining a floor 6 combat run is going into boss, killing all the terracottas, the giants, and the golems. To do this, it's recommended you have a Terminator or a Hyperion, and the ability to solo F6 without a tank. Because you're doing this inside of dungeons, your god pot will not work, and it's recommended that you have experience potions with Vikings tier in it for the 10 combat wisdom, or you just have combat XP potions which give you 20 combat wisdom. From a single run without any veteran, we got 47,700 XP, but with the max veteran, we got 164,000 combat XP. Now, everyone's run speed will be a little different, but from our testing, we're able to get it down to around 3 minutes a run. This is also including downtime and queuing. But with this in mind, 3 minutes a run, it averages around 3.2 million combat XP an hour. Do take this number with a grain of salt, as realistically you might not be using any type of armor with the veteran on it. The best part about this is since you're doing solo dungeons, you're not going to be able to get griefed, or nothing can really get out of your way besides yourself, compared to everything else in this, which has some type of public lobby that you will have to fight people for. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. Flares. Out of everything in this game, Flares is the most amount of combat XP you can get an hour. The way to actually kill Flares, it's required that you have a Hyperion with Prosecute on it, specifically Prosecute 6, so you actually are able to one-tap them. Now, you can use Storm for this, but it is recommended you use Aurora so that you never run out of mana. This is, of course, with the appropriate attributes. Something I do need to mention is that a Gauntlet of Contagion is definitely required, as without it, you'll only get 1 kill per flare, as with it, you will get 3. Now, without any vet, the numbers pretty sad. It's only 1.3 million combat XP an hour, but when you look at the number with max veteran, we're looking around 4.5 million combat XP an hour. Doing this method with an unleveled G-Drag is actually really good for money as well, as the pet XP you'll be gaining from this is insane. The nice part about flares too is the vanquishers you get from them. Doing flares out of any other Crimson Isle mob is the best way to get vanquishers on top of everything, which if you aren't planning to do Kudra, can also be used to craft equipment to make more money off of that. But if you do plan on doing Kudra, this will be 100% the best way to get the nether stars you need. A little off topic, but you will average around a stack of stars an hour. As a little tip for doing flares, I'd recommend you go around in the circle in a specific way that when you go in a full circle, the flare that you started on will be your spawn. The reason I say this specifically is for the Grandma Wolf bonus of the combat wisdom, as along the way of hundreds of thousand flares you might have to do, this will add up. Yeah, that's about it for today's guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Making this whole guide took a long while, so if you could, please remember to subscribe. But yeah, that's about it. See ya.